Alright, everyone, welcome back to r/Fatlogic. And today we're just gonna jump right into it. So let's get started. I won't lie. Walking into store after store and saying to my mom, "Oh, they don't sell my size," got to me a bit. And even if they did sell my size, it was almost always sold out. So did not fitting in public transit seats very easily. Having seatbelts be super tight or not fit at all, or struggling to fit up staircases in the castles. It crossed my mind a couple of times how much easier it might be if I lost weight. I can't deny that being smaller has its advantages, especially in the UK. I want to deny it all, but I can't. But this is my body, and I appreciate all it does for me, not the issues it may cause or what it can't. And if it means there is some struggle or hardship accompanying the appreciation, then so be it. I'll be over here, celebrating that my body took thousands of steps across two nations the best it could. It climbed those staircases in the castles, even though it was hard, and sat out the ones that didn't feel comfortable. It knew when to take a moment to rest. I'm done trying to change myself. I'm now about adapting and working with what I have and celebrating what I can do. And that's good enough for me. And yes, I know I have size privilege. As a size 18-20 person, not everyone will share my experience. I'm just sharing my personal circumstance. So, this is a perfect example of how they can at least recognize that if they lost weight, things would be easier. And I actually don't necessarily have a problem with them celebrating the activity that they could do, especially like size 18-20 isn't, I don't think that crosses into morbidly obese territory. Um, it's a couple sizes bigger than I am. I tend to be between a size 12 and a size 14. In sizes that run small, I can go up to 16. Um, but I don't know, I kind of feel like they use it as, I think you can both celebrate what you're still able to do and strive to be better and strive to lose weight and strive to make these things easier. And so I think focusing entirely on what your body can do isn't exactly the answer either. I don't think you should dwell on what it can't do, and I don't think you should dwell on what it can do. I think there's like a happy medium there. And I really don't understand what it is with the fat logic people that they act like their body is a separate identity from their mind. Like, it climbed those staircases in the castles even though it was hard and set out the ones that didn't feel comfortable. Meaning, no, you chose as a person that you climbed up the ones you could, and then there were ones that just seemed like too much, so you sat it out. You can say that. It's not that your body had a mind of its own or the it knew when to take a moment to rest, meaning you were exhausted and rather than pushing yourself, you took a moment to rest. There's no problems with that. I just don't understand why they act like their body is its own entity. This is like a common thing in the fat acceptance movement. Your body is connected to your mind. They're not separate entities. The body can't do anything that the mind doesn't direct it to do, with the exception of um, stuff that the brain stem controls, such as blinking and breathing and digestion and that sort of thing. But on the grand scheme of things, when it comes to things like going up the stairs, your mind controls your body to walk up the stairs. Your body didn't like just do that on its own. Even when you're on autopilot, your brain is still like, okay, here's the routine that I don't really have to think about anymore because you've done it so much, it's ingrained, and I can almost do it automatically without much thinking. It's still your brain that's doing it. So I don't really like, and I find it super unfortunate that she has to be like, and I have size privilege and have to do all that. And I just, it's like there's nothing wrong with celebrating what you can do and being proud of yourself for pushing yourself a little bit. I don't have any problem with that. I don't think that that means that you have to basically rest on your laurels. because that's what it feels like this is aiming for. And it doesn't mean that your body has this mind of its own. I mean, it has your mind. It does kind of have a mind of its own. It has your mind, but like they're not separated. There's not like your mind and then your body's mind. Like they're one and the same. So, yeah, let's move on. Your before and after weight loss photo is inherently fat phobic. Automatically positioning being larger as bad, no matter your intention, your actions do not exist in a vacuum. There is no way to talk about how much you hate your larger body without harming your fat friends. I disagree. I disagree. I disagree. All right. uh, no. Just no. I feel like what they're not understanding is that before and after photos are not about demonizing how big you were. It's about how much progress and how much work you've put in towards your body. Your body can be treated kind of like a project, like a knitting project or a craft project or a house project or whatever. Whatever. It's essentially the same thing in that you are working towards adjusting your body and manipulating your body to a degree to achieve an aesthetic that you want, or maybe achieve like a base heart rate that you want if your heart rate's kind of high, or how far you can run. Like it's like the most basic form of body modification, and I don't even really like putting it necessarily in that group. That's just the only word that comes to mind at the moment, because it's not the same as like that elf ear thing where you sew the tip of your ear together. Um, but it is kind of like body modification in that you can build muscle and completely change the way your body looks just through diet and exercise. And sure, it can be taken to extremes, but that's not. It's for diet and exercise. It's unusual to take it to an extreme. But back to the post. So me saying I like myself thinner does not harm the fat people around me. Like, they may get jealous. I've been jealous of people that have lost weight. I've been jealous of my sister. My sister's fucking tiny. I'm like the fat sister. And my family hates when I refer to myself as that because they don't think I'm fat. I am fat. Um, I, but I'm working on losing the weight, and that's what matters. But I've been plenty jealous of my very thin sister, and when she like gained a little bit of weight over the winter, like I think it was less than 10 pounds, and then she worked on getting a little bit more movement and changing her diet a bit to where she lost those pounds again. That was not an attack on me by any means. She was doing it to get back to the weight that she likes herself at. And was I a bit jealous? Yes. Yes, I was. But that's a me issue. That's not a her issue. And her losing weight does not affect me, just as before and after photos do not affect the fat people that view them, except in how it makes them reflect on their own choices and their own actions and their own feelings. And they can get jealous about that. And I think that's totally valid to get jealous, quite frankly. Like, it doesn't give you the right to attack those that are doing well, but to be jealous can be a motivator. To be jealous, I think, is very human. That doesn't mean that my posting before and after photos is harmful by any means. That's not me being harmful. That's me taking pride in an ongoing project I have involving my body. It's not harmful. It's just uncomfortable for those that have been unable to achieve that through whatever. I mean, I'm not saying that it's strictly laziness. Like, there could be other things at play that keep them from being able to drop the amount of weight that they want to drop. But that's not harmful to them. Extreme dieting in moms can mimic the experience of famine for their fetus, causing offspring's epigenetics to get messed up so that they retain much more fat than their parents because their bodies adapted for a famine that doesn't exist. this effect lasts generations. So this goes back to people, like, thinking that the Great Depression would still affect them, even though it's a few generations down the line. And that's just not how genetics work. And this whole epigenetics thing, epigenetics um, is a thing, and it can affect the body to a degree. I'm not going to deny that. Epigenetics is still a pretty new field, though, and I don't think even the experts have a full grasp yet of how it works, much less laymen like these people. Um, and myself, quite frankly. Like, I have a basic, rudimentary understanding of epigenetics. I think that they took a basic, rudimentary understanding of epigenetics and extrapolated it to the point of absurdity. That's kind of my understanding of how they use epigenetics. Um, but that's not how this works. Don't get me wrong. Extreme dieting in pregnant women um, can result in some issues with the fetus depending on how extreme that they're going. If they are dieting, though, under doctor supervision and they began with an excess amount of weight, I don't think that's going to have a drastic effect on the fetus. Um, and especially if they're doing it with medical supervision, like, it's pretty safe, typically. Like, barring the extremes, barring and the thing is that they say extreme dieting. What are they referring to as extreme dieting is my question. Because this isn't like this first, I mean, not the famine part, but can cause negative, the general, if we just took the base of what they're saying here, in that extreme dieting can lead to problems with the fetus. Uh, that's not entirely wrong on its face. My question is what extreme dieting means to them, because there have been people, there have been Fatlogic people that are like, uh, bringing down 500 calories a day when you were is like starvation mode. Even if you were, let's say, starting at 2,500 and then you took it down to 2,000, it's still just absolutely unbelievable to think of. Uh, and so I'm curious what they mean by extreme dieting. Um, if these are if this is in terms of pregnancy, then chances are any diets that the mother is doing um, is being overseen by doctors. And if it isn't, then yes, there's a little bit of concern there, especially if it truly is an extreme diet. And I mean extreme. I mean, like, that could actually pose harm. But just a general diet will not necessarily cause harm to a fetus. Just saying. The key to overcoming your fears of fatness is understanding you've inherited these fears and you've been lied to. These fears only exist because media, society, the health system, etc. tell you that thin equals superior. From a health perspective, more attractive, more worthy, etc. And that you can control your body shape and size. You can't. Your genetics will decide this. Would you diet if you lived on a desert island and saw no one? Alright, so couple things to unpack here. I think saying a fear of fatness, which I don't know if I would go so far as to say it's a fear. For some people, it is a fear. For some people, it's just a matter of it's my preference to not be fat. um, but I don't think I don't like that it's placing this fear of fatness, as they call it, completely to external forces, as though seeing someone morbidly obese, having trouble with their breath, and not being able to move the way thinner people do, has absolutely does not come into play, apparently. Like, your own eyes don't come into play. No, you have entirely learned this through media, society, and health that tell you that thin is always better, which is wrong. I mean, plenty of people show significant concern for people like Eugenia Cooney and the pro-Ana movement. Like those are dangerous, and plenty of people take issue with it. But the thing is that they act like the pro-Ana people are held on a pedestal, and they're not. Like, it's two sides of the same coin. It's just two different extremes. Um, and this whole thing about you can't control your body shape or size because your genetics determine it entirely is a complete falsehood. That's just a complete falsehood. I'm not saying genetics don't play any um, role in it. They certainly do, especially with how your body distributes fat. I'm pretty fortunate my body distributes my fat in ways that are more flattering than the way other people carry their fat. Now, granted, I have flabby arms and I hate it, and I have like the second boob thing going on. But other than like those two problem areas, a lot of my weight tends to go to my thighs and my butt and my hips. So my waist, while definitely thicker than I want, is still well defined. And I don't have that much of a gut. But my overall weight is due to environmental factors because I eat too much. I don't think I even eat very unhealthy. I just know my portion sizes are entirely too big. Um, and I do have a bit of an issue with sugar. I'll admit that. So it is a little bit of my food choices as well as my portion sizes that have gotten me to where I am. As for would you diet if you lived on a desert island and saw no one? The answer is probably no, but not for the reason that they think. If I'm on a desert island and I'm living for survival, I'm getting a fuck ton of exercise. I don't have any of my sedentary hobbies to do, and my food is very limited based on what I can find on the island. So I think that's a poor question to pose to someone because the answer is, well, maybe not for them because the answer will usually be no because you're going to have to work for shelter and food. And I don't know. I don't know. Unless they're trying to say you live on a desert island, you'll see no one, but you have all of the amenities of internet and indoor plumbing and the abundance of food and all of the snack foods that you want. Like, if it's in this weird place, like, I would probably still monitor what I eat and go out for regular exercise, I think, regardless of how we interpret this. So, anyway, let's move on. I was just denied knee surgery, bilateral total knee replacement, because of my BMI. The surgeon says he has a preferred BMI of 35 and would not consider me as a candidate for surgery until I reached it, even though he admitted to me that his assessment of the condition of my knees in isolation made me a candidate for immediate TKR. The last time I was at a BMI that met his criteria, I was in my teens and was so thin I looked sick. Two parts to address with this. First, chances are the reason why he has a criteria of a BMI of 35 or under is because if you're doing a total knee replacement, this is surgery. Your knees are load-bearing joints. They have to deal with a lot of weight on top of them. And it can probably diminish and hurt the healing process if you're too heavy. It also puts there's also a chance that the knees have those knee replacement uh, like artificial joints have a weight limit. Like, I don't know what they are, but that's probably contributes to why he has the criteria for it. It's not fat phobia, it's a matter of limitations with the material that they're using and the limitations of your own body to heal, given that the joint that you are replacing is a load-bearing joint. And this whole bullshit of when she had a BMI of 35, she was in her teens and looked sick. I have a BMI of 30, and I am flabby. So I find this very hard to believe that at a 35 you look so thin you look sick. I call some fucking bullshit on that one. Um, Chances are you were significantly thinner than you are now if you were only in a BMI of 35 in your teens. It's probably significantly thinner than you look now, but I guarantee you won't look so thin that you look sick. Like maybe if you had a ridiculous amount of muscle, then maybe. But I get the strong feeling that you don't. If losing weight and keeping it off requires dedicating your entire existence to doing so because you're literally fighting every urge that your body has to restore your weight to safety, do you really want it? I wish to acknowledge that your answer to this might be yes, especially if you experience a lot of weight stigma in your current body. But if you're in a place to receive this message, just consider for a moment that the options may really be between dedicating your life trying to fight your body's natural size and more than likely still not being able to do so, or choosing to reclaim your time and energy through healing and also leave space to grieve the body you wish you had. So here's the thing. If you're doing, if you're not following like a fad diet and you're making lifestyle changes to lose weight, chances are the process of losing weight is going to be a lot slower than it will be with a fad diet, but it'll also be more sustainable. That's the trade-off generally. And because you're incorporating these into a lifestyle, it becomes more second nature, and therefore keeping it off is easier. Um, the you really are only, and the thing is, even when you're like dedicating a lot of time to it, unless you're doing like full on bodybuilder stuff, or maybe you're training to like run a marathon, if you're just trying to lose weight, you're probably not dedicating your entire existence and all of your time to losing weight unless you're really obsessive. So, and the thing is that you're putting in a lot of definitely going to put in more time and effort towards the beginning until things become more natural for you. But eventually it will become second nature and you won't have to monitor as closely. So it's not a matter of dedicating your entire life. There is a bit of dedication in the beginning, and by beginning I mean like the first 2 years, in order to understand what a serving looks like, how much you really need to eat, best foods, your exercise. But eventually, if you keep up with it, it becomes second nature and it doesn't require nearly as much of your own cognitive processes to focus on it. So you're really not dedicating your entire life to fighting this, and your body's natural size. I really don't like that your body's natural size bullshit, because like the body has plenty of natural sizes based on how much you eat. So I would actually pose the opposite, because especially with people that are morbidly obese, we've seen that they have an obsession with food. So do you want to dedicate your entire life to chasing the best tasting food for that moment of the pleasure of tasting it? Um, or do you want to focus your mind on other more productive things and your body will kind of naturally level out on its own? And a lot of the people that are morbidly obese, not everyone, but a lot of them have some sort of trauma or something. So do you want to dedicate your life chasing the food to run away from your trauma, or do you want to get that trauma addressed and move past it and not let it drive these impulse behaviors? So, I mean, there's a number of ways to spin this. I think we have two more. My pain doctor put in a prescription for a med I'm allergic to, in spite that information being on my chart and direct and bleh. My pain doctor put in a prescription for a med I'm allergic to, in spite of that information being in my chart and me saying directly to his face right before he wrote the script, I'm allergic to X. Oh, this doesn't have X in it, he assured me as he wrote the script for X. He was understandably distracted because I was being fat at him, and he wanted to talk about that more than deal with my prescription needs, what a great system we have. So, one, if he really did that, that could actually be, especially if it's noted in your chart, you could have, if this actually happened the way they said it happened, I think that's a case for malpractice, isn't it? Because it was an abundant level of professional neglect on what he should have been doing. That being said, um, a lot of medications have similar names, so maybe that was at play there. I don't know. And I think them assuming that the doctor was ignoring their allergy to medicine strictly because they were fat seems to be, to me, to be a bit of a reach. Like, perhaps it was a bad doctor, perhaps the script wasn't what you thought it was for. What did he just suggest weight and weight loss in passing and it triggered you? Uh, I don't. These two things. I guess the thing is that maybe he was a little over focused on her weight, and maybe he did prescribe uh, a medication that that person is allergic to. I don't see how these two things link up so much. Granted, I wasn't there, but there's something to be said about the doctor writing a script for something that you're allergic to when you both said it to him and it was noted on your chart. So, I mean, that seems like malpractice to me. That could definitely get him in trouble, and if this did actually happen, I would file a complaint with the office. But I don't know if these two things were as connected as these people claim. So, I don't know. I'm curious about your opinions on this. Do you think this was real? Do you think it was based on their weight? Do you think the doctor is just a terrible person? Do you think they maybe misinterpreted what they were writing a script for? Like, I'm very curious to hear your opinions on this particular one. And with that, we are going to end it here. By the time you guys see this, I will be off my glorious 1 week spring break. 9 more weeks until school's out. I don't want to go back. uh, it's just getting back into the grind that's hard. Because it's basically like 6 days a week for me. I have 5 days teaching, and then one day I spend all my weekend just planning out lessons and stuff. So it's just kind of hard. But I'm thinking that it'll be maybe a little bit easier when I'm not juggling multiple schools and I have my own classroom and I'm not worried about pleasing a dozen different people with my lesson plans. Um, Unfortunately, I did end up only maintaining again this week. I really need to get back on top of this. I don't know why I keep being so lazy with logging my food. Um, I think this week it was just a matter of I don't want to worry about shit, but I need to get back on it. I'm screwing up because my goal was to lose 1 pound a week, um, and I've lost maybe 10 pounds so far this year. It's not great. So, yeah, I need to work on that. I need to get my head out of my ass. But that's all I have for you for Fatlogic this week. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time, lovely listeners, lovely watchers. Have a good week.